Now look, when strikes go on this long, I've said this many times, nobody's happy. We already know that there's infighting going on amongst the AMPTP, the studios, right? Not all the studios are on the same page. And there is infighting and discussions and a little bit of backstabbing and a little bit of throwing under the bus and all that kind of stuff is going on at the AMPTP because nobody's happy. It's not surprising then to hear that there's also that sort of stuff going on within the unions. Of course, the AMPTP will deny it. Of course, the unions will deny it. But the cracks are starting to show on all sides, right? Now, this was interesting. A few days ago, a story came out that a couple of high-profile showrunners, writers, members of the WGA, including Noah Hawley, who did Fargo, and he was the showrunner on Legion, the showrunner for Blackish, and a couple of others, that had some concerns, and they had scheduled, this was in the Hollywood Reporter, that they had scheduled a meeting with the WGA leadership to sit down and talk about the status of the strike. Well, in Yahoo News today, we found out that meeting got canceled, and it wasn't a happy canceled. This comes to us from Yahoo News, who write the following. The Writers Guild of America canceled a scheduled meeting with top Hollywood showrunners, including Kenya Barris and Noah Hawley, on Monday after a week of intense bickering over whether the Guild is adequately seeking a resolution to the entertainment industry's crippling 4-month-old strike, the Wrap has learned. Barris from Blackish, Hawley from Fargo, and of course Legion, and numerous powerful showrunners have been demanding answers from the WGA negotiating leadership, namely Chief Negotiator Ellen Stutzman and committee co-chairs Chris Kaiser and David A. Goodman, to ensure that the Guild was motivated to get a deal. The showrunners, this is where it gets interesting. The showrunners began to reach out for clarification last Tuesday, and the exchanges with WGA leadership has been described to the Wrap by an individual with knowledge as intense and emotional, with phone calls between individual showrunners and Guild leaders leading to fights, shouting matches, and quote-unquote screaming hang-ups, as the individual put it. Now, the Wrap, one of the big trades in the industry, reached out to the reps for the showrunners and to the WGA. Not surprisingly, the reps from the showrunners did not respond for comment. The WGA said something interesting. They said, the story's not true, and then didn't clarify. But then they did follow up. They said, by the way, it was the showrunners who canceled the meeting. To me, that's like saying, hey, I heard you went on a date with your wife in a restaurant and a screaming match ensued and you threw a bowl of soup at her. To which you reply, that's not true at all. And by the way, she's the one who threw the bowl of soup at me. It's okay. Anyway, we've seen the breaks. We've seen the cracking. We've seen the throwing under the bus on the AMPTP. We are starting to see it in the WGA, where some members, including some senior members of the WGA, are thinking that the leadership of the WGA isn't really interested in getting a deal done. Or at least they're not doing, or they're just they're digging their heels in on, we want what we originally asked for, regardless of anything else. Whereas some other people in the WGA are saying, we're going to have to compromise in some places. I mean, that's what deal making is. And to have high profile people like this come out. We want to take a moment and thank the sponsor of this video, MasterClass. Guys, as a small business owner, I am finding myself having to be in negotiations all the time, whether it's with new contractors, vendors, or even agencies that represent our company. Now, I don't like to go into these negotiations unarmed, so I found the perfect class on MasterClass, The Art of Negotiation by Chris Voss, a real-life former FBI lead hostage negotiator. Taking this class on MasterClass made me feel a lot more equipped and confident going into all these various negotiations I have to do on a regular basis. With MasterClass, you can learn from the best to become your best anytime, anywhere, and at your own pace. An annual membership starts at just $10 a month, and you get unlimited access to every instructor, thousands of online lessons, exclusive content, insight, and much more. There are over 180 classes to pick from, everything from filmmaking with Martin Scorsese all the way to cooking with the great Gordon Ramsay. In MasterClass, you will find practical lessons that you can apply to your life and work. So guys, get unlimited access to every class, and right now, as a John Campea Show listener, you can get 15% off when you go to masterclass.com/Campea. That's masterclass.com/Campea for 15% off an annual membership. Masterclass.com/Campea. Rob, look, I'm not surprised. The WGA strike is now at 130 plus days.
Yeah.
Right? Over 4 months. I'm not surprised to see infighting amongst the studios. I'm not surprised by that at all. These are individuals in the WGA and the Screen Actors Guild by extension, working people who are just trying to get a fair deal and work their jobs. Not surprised to see that there's some infighting going on over there too. Chris Carr often talks about that even within very unified, unions, there's going to be different personalities and there's going to be conflict in politics. You read this story. What's standing out to you the most? Are you surprised to hear about this? I don't know. What do you think about this whole situation?
Well, first of all, I know David Goodman, who's on the negotiating committee. I think he's a really good guy. He's even been on my YouTube show a couple times. He was an executive producer of Orville. He worked on Star Trek. I've known him for a while. Terrific guy. And he's on their negotiating committee. The thing is, though, they were talking about, and yesterday, by the way, was the Showrunner Day. I believe it was in front of Fox that all the showrunners came to show solidarity and protest out in front of the studio. I think it was in front of Fox, but it was yesterday. I think, though, that showrunners are not just in charge of their writers' rooms. They're in charge of their whole crew, everybody. And I'm sure that showrunners themselves are now fielding calls from, their camera departments, their grip and electrical departments. Are we working? How long is this going to go on? And they're probably getting pressure from people that have nothing to do with this strike. They just want to go back to work. And the showrunner's like, what's the problem? What is it what do we need to fix? So the showrunners are getting pressure from places that the writers themselves are not getting.
And just to clarify for people who are listening to this and may not understand some of the terminology, the showrunners are not studio. They are writers. These are WGA members themselves.
Many times created the shows that are being written.
Usually the creators. Yes, please continue.
Oh, and so, but they're also running the show. The showrunners are doing just that, which means all the rest of the crew that work on these shows, like you have actors, of course, and you have a writing staff, but you have 100 crew members that make a show run. And everybody from the caterers to the grip and electric to the camera people to costumes and makeup and script supervision and all of this. And so they're the ones having to field calls. When do we get to go back to work? And it's got to be incredibly pressure-filled when they're getting phone calls from people that have nothing to do with this strike except the fact that they're out of work going, I'm going to lose my house. So that's why these showrunners, I think, wanted to have this meeting to find out where we at, what can I tell people, what can I tell the other people that I'm the one that I have to hire again. And I'm sure that's why you're seeing things that are fractious. And another thing, John, that's different than previous strikes is you have players in the game like Netflix, like Apple, like Amazon that aren't like studios.
Yeah.
And so
really muddies the waters.
And yes, so that it's hard to negotiate. Apple's like, look, our primary business is not making movies and shows for Apple Plus. We sell hardware and software. This is just an adjunct business for us. So now we're being lumped in on this. And what are we supposed to do? We don't really know. And it's tough to negotiate now. And it's a mess.
Well, I mean, here's hoping that they're going to be able to get this resolved and get this thing all together. And again, lest you think this is just like the WGA, listen, the studios themselves have fractures and are infighting and stuff like that. Tensions are getting high. People are on the hot seat. Some people haven't been able to pay their bills. I mean, it's going to be a high stress situation. When you have people in a high stress situation, there's going to be conflict. So let's hopefully see this conflict lead to a resolution, shall we? Hey guys, thanks so much for watching this video. Make sure you like the video, leave a comment, and subscribe to our channel. And don't forget, we have a daily podcast called the John Campea Show podcast, available on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, or your favorite podcasting app of choice. Go and subscribe to it today so it'll be there when you need it.